So these are always the least enjoyable videos to make, but if I'm going to talk about the NBA day to day, then I don't think I can really let this go. So, Demarcus Cousins tears his ACL in his left leg, the same leg that he had the Achilles, that he had the quad injury, and this is discouraging for 9 million reasons. One of them being, I think Demarcus, before the Achilles injury, was in a pretty good position to have an awesome, second half of his prime sort of thing, because it seemed like he was maturing. I mean, talent-wise, we all know, he was Demarcus Cousins. He was arguably the best center in the league, all that stuff. And now for it to be where it is, it does suck, but it's also for other reasons. I feel like before this, he was in a position to kind of get his career back on track. I mean, even with him clearly being on the heavy side because he wasn't able to work out for the Warriors, he still played a big role in one of the games in the finals. I think it was game 2. I don't remember exactly. It could have been game 3. I don't really remember. But there was one game in there where you were like, oh, that's still Demarcus Cousins, even with his weight not in check and probably still feeling the lower body injuries a little bit. So you have to think, with the weight that he lost this offseason, and he lost quite a bit, that he was going to be effective for the Lakers. I mean, I think the amount of weight he lost and in the amount of time it took him to lose it showed Boogie was working his ass off to really prove to basically everybody, I'm still Demarcus Cousins. And I mean, there was a chance that if he was really awesome for the Lakers and he was that offensive force, that could have been kind of devastating with LeBron and AD already there, right? So this is just, it really is the most discouraging thing that can happen in sports, or at least it's on the short list of things like that. So the next conversation to have, which is not fun, is where does this mean for Demarcus Cousins moving forward, his career and all that stuff. We don't really know on a timetable yet. ACL injuries usually 8 months, 9 months, could potentially be a year if things don't go well. So could we see Boogie next year for the Lakers? Or I should say this year, because the season's in 2 months. I mean, I don't know. If that was going to be the case, then we'd be seeing him in March, April, when the Lakers are in the thick of the playoffs, or they've either entered the playoffs. If I didn't look up the dates beforehand, but it's in that ballpark. That's a tough sell to get that guy in there. Now, I'm sure the Lakers will still attempt it, and I would do the same thing, but even then, you got to be really careful about Demarcus Cousins' future at this point. I mean, maybe he should take an entire season off just to ensure that he can get all this under control. The Achilles, the quad, the ACL. I mean, hell, we saw in the finals, or at least in the playoffs at times, it seemed like Kawhi was still favoring that quad at times. So, I mean, look, to quote Wilson Chandler on Twitter, quadricep injuries are really weird, and you think you're fine and you're not fine, and it's safe to assume that was part of what led to the ACL tear. So Boogie just might want to be really, really safe at this point, and if that's the case, we might not see him at all next season. And then from there, we're having a much different conversation about who'd be willing to sign him, and that was kind of what we were already talking about this previous year. And I really hope he ends up somewhere, because I know he's going to work his ass off to get there, but I really don't know. Now, if we talk about just Boogie as a player, so unfortunately, I don't really think we're going to see the Demarcus Cousins get the rebound, bring it up the floor himself, and then finish at the rim looking like a shooting guard player anymore. I mean, we've seen what these kinds of things have done to Derrick Rose, and he was maybe the most athletic player ever. He's certainly on the, however big that list is, he was definitely on it. So, then you ask, okay, well, what is it for Demarcus's play style and all that? Well, for one, I feel like he can definitely be an outside shooter for a team. His form's good, his confidence is there and all that. So does that mean he could be like a Brook Lopez type of a center for somebody when he's eventually able to play again? Honestly, I do kind of think that could be a thing. Now, it would have to be a team where there's a few guys who can create shots for him. Not that I think he's going to be like some dude who just stands at the three-point line. Boogie's still going to be able to do other things, like post up and occasionally bust out the moves off the dribble. I just don't know if he's going to have that burst. But in the half court, sometimes I think he could do it. I think he could still be a good rebounder. But I do think the shooting is what would allow him to still be a really impactful player. I mean, you look at Brook Lopez's stats this previous season, right? 6 threes a game, basically 36.5%. 13 points, 5 rebounds, and of course, his positive contribution to the Bucks was pretty massive. I'd like to think DeMarcus Cousins can still do that. Now, Brook also played 81 games and 29 minutes a game. I don't know if DeMarcus can be like that moving forward. It might have to be pretty conservative with managing his minutes and managing back-to-backs and that kind of thing, but I would like to think that Boogie can be that for a team, you know? Now, there's also a question about the defense. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to still think that his offensive stuff could be good enough to where if you're playing him against backups and that kind of thing, that his defensive stuff in the pick and roll could probably not be exposed too badly. I don't know. Where I fall on this is I still think DeMarcus Cousins can play in the NBA, but if we look at his last, just look at his stat line the last season with the Pelicans, like 25 points, 13 rebounds, 5.5 assists. I don't know if that guy's coming back, but to say on it again, he shot 6 threes and shot 35%. I think that guy can still make an impact in the league. So let's just hope that DeMarcus Cousins is back as soon as possible.